So this is a philosophical base of non-violence. Today we are going to discuss about the philosophical insight behind the practice of non-violence. For that, it is necessary we have to go through the concept of self of Jainism. There are a lot of traditions in India. They are also talking about the self, but the concept of self, which is found in Jainism, it is very inclusive and having so much detail, minute details, and that's why we can understand the graveness of the practice of non-violence. So we know that the world is consisting of 6 basic substances. Among them, the first is the medium of motion, which is technically known as dharmastika. The second substance is the medium of rest, which is known as adharmastika. Third one is space, which is known as akashastika. The fourth one is Pudgal, that is matter and material energies. And the fifth one is Jivastika, that is soul or Jeev, you can say, or Atman. And the sixth one is Kal, that is time. So we have seen that these are the 6 basic fundamental realities or entities. The whole universe is consisting of these basic substances according to Jainism. So among these 6, the one is Jiva, which is very important to understand the philosophical insight of Jainism behind the practice of non-violence. So what is soul? What is Jiva? It is said that Jiva is translated as Atman or soul. You can say these are the synonymous terms for understanding the concept of self. We can say Jeev, we can say Atman, we can say soul, or we can say self, authentic self, not just the personality which we are having as self. So it is associated with all forms of life. According to Jainism, the soul is not confined to human body only or to divine self, but it is permeated in all different forms of life. So a living being has a soul and a body. Soul is different from the body. Mostly we understand that what we are perceiving as our personality, as physical body, we think that ourself is what we are having the physical existence. But we have to understand that this physical existence is a kind of body structure, but it is not the self, real self, authentic self. Yes, the self is inside the body. It is permeated through in the body, but soul is different. Soul is this non-material substance, and body is a material substance, a physical element. Primary identifying property of Jiva is consciousness. You will not find consciousness in any other elements or any other entities than the soul. So its consciousness is the fundamental or defining characteristic of soul. While matter has no consciousness, it is devoid of consciousness. At present, we see so many devices of artificial intelligence, but after all, they are devices of artificial intelligence and not the real intelligence, which is found in only in the living beings, in the soul. Jeev is eternal, it never dies. So we have to understand that soul is eternal. It survives all the times in any form of life. So even after death, it doesn't die, it survives in some or other forms. Jiva's involvement in the cycle of birth and death is beginningless. So we can see that why the soul is associated with body, and when it is associated, then the answer is that the soul and body are associated with each other from the time immemorial. It is beginningless. We cannot find out the particular date and time for their association. This cycle is due to karma of jiva. And why it is in the cycle of birth and death? It is because of it's a karmic residue which it has created for itself. Now we would see that this consciousness is the fundamental characteristic of soul, and this consciousness is found in two forms. One is called jnana. It means analytical knowledge. Through this kind of function of our consciousness, we can go into detail of everything and anything. And the second phase of consciousness or second function of consciousness is darshan. And darshan means synthetic knowledge or the general knowledge about the things. So darshan sometimes is also known as samyak darshan, but here it is not taken in that sense. Samyak darshan is taken in the sense of faith, strong faith or firm belief in the doctrines of jinas. But here it is taken in the sense of general knowledge about the things. We know that there are two stages of our knowledge. Whenever we look at anything, first we take the general perception about the thing that it is something, but after we start thinking about its particular form, particular qualities, particular use. So all these different spatial aspects are explored after having general perception about the things. So that's why here it is said that consciousness is working in two ways. One is in the form of darshan, it means in general perception, and the second is knowledge, it means the specific inquiry which you do to after getting general perception about anything. So perception and knowledge, these are the two main attributes, two aspects of our consciousness. The other manifestations of consciousness are bliss and spiritual power. So bliss is also the fundamental quality of soul. Though people are looking for happiness outside and they are going after the material pleasures and comforts because they are thinking that the happiness is outside in these material resources. But yes, matter can also give some happiness, but that is not permanent, that is not independent, that is not the original or everlasting. If we are looking for everlasting happiness and the original source of happiness, then it is the self which is having this kind of quality, that it can make you or anybody happy in all situations, all the times. And spiritual power, we have immense capacity, immense power, and that's why we can see that why we all are different. Someone is more intelligent and someone is having general knowledge about anything. So this kind of capacity is developed depending on our own genuine efforts. So soul has immense power. It has infinite power of knowledge, infinite power of intuition, infinite bliss, and infinite energies. You can do miracles, you can do magical things, but just we have to see that how much we are familiar with our own powers. A pure soul has infinite knowledge, infinite perception, perfect bliss, and infinite spiritual power, as I have said. So expression of these powers in a living being is obstructed by karma. So why these old powers which are hidden in ourselves, and we are looking outside and getting frustrated when we don't get. So why these powers are not awakened in us or not functioning in a proper way? So it is because of the obstructions which are created by our own karmas. So we experience only a fraction of these powers and not fully. The suffering and misery and other experiences of soul is due to our own karmas. So in the state of salvation obtained when all the karmas are removed, the soul experiences infinite knowledge, infinite perception, perfect bliss, infinite spiritual power. So you can see that in the state of salvation, we can realize all these power in their fullest form. Soul occupies the space of the body. Same soul can enter the body of a fly or an elephant. Now we can see that soul is having the capacity to contract and to expand to the size and space of body. So that's why the same soul can reside in the elephant, and it can also reside in an ant when it goes to that particular form. So a soul is having this kind of capacity also to contract itself and to expand according to the need of the body. Now we would see that there are several types of souls or living beings or lives. So what are those souls? According to Jainism, all souls can be divided into two broader categories. First one is mundane, it means sansari, or in Hindi you can say. So mundane souls are divided into two kinds, with mind and without mind. So there are two types of souls, mundane and liberated. So among the mundane, there are again two categories. There are certain living beings who are having mental development and some are not having. So humans are having such kind of mental development, other animal, they are also, what we say, they are also, what we say, having a life, but they are not having any kind of mental development, or we can say that they have no brain. Mind is an internal sense organ and does not come in contact directly with object. So mind has no capacity to come in the direct contact of an object until and unless we know things through our senses. So mind mostly analyzes the sense data which are obtained through our five senses. Physical mind is different from soul. It is made up of certain material. So there are two types of mind which are working. The first one is psychical and the other one is physical. So the physical mind is also different from soul because it is physical, while soul is non-physical. And this physical mind is made up of subtle material, which is recognized as the matter of manovargana. So this is a one kind of one category of matter from which our mind is made of. So here the psychical mind is part of the soul. But whenever we are using this physical mind to think anything, to analyze anything, to classify, categorize, or reasoning, then it is our own power which is working behind this physical mind. If that power is absent, our brain cannot function. Our brain cannot think of anything. So that's why this physical mind, psychical mind, is the part of a soul. If soul is inside the body, then brain can also work, other senses can also work, and they can know something which they are looking for. Souls endowed with mind have rationality. And that's why human beings are rational beings, because they are having mind. Little bit rationality may be found in the developed animals. They also understand the things, whatever is said to them by their owners. So they can rationalize that whether we have to go or whether we have to stop somewhere. Souls are also, now we would see that all different souls are of two classes, which are the worldly souls. Okay. They come under two classes. One is called Thrus and the other one is called Sthavar. So Thrus means the mobile living beings. And who can be mobile? Those who are having 2 to 5 senses. They can only move from one place to another. But those who are devoid of 2 to 5 senses and having only the one sense, that is the touch or skin or body, you can say, they come under the immobile living beings. So among those immobile living beings, we find five types of living beings which are recognized as natural resources. So the immobile souls have only one touch, and those all the 5 types of immobile living beings are recognized as earth-bodied living beings, water-bodied living beings, fire-bodied living beings, air-bodied living beings, and plants. So these are the 5 types of natural resources which we are thinking that they are having no life, they are just for our use, and we are using them as we want. And because of that, we are finding nowadays that there is a lot of pollution in the environment, there is ecological imbalance, there is the problem of climate change, global warming, and natural calamities. Because we have created such kind of imbalance in the nature by using unnecessary using these natural resources, or by exploiting these natural resources, thinking that they are just made for us, or we can use them in the way we want. So these are, but according to Jainism, these earthly bodies, water bodies, fire, air, plants, all are having some kind of life. So we should not use them unnecessarily. Yes, we cannot survive without eating, without taking bath, without cleaning the houses, or without productions in which water is needed. But that come under the necessary violence, without which no one can survive. But unnecessary use of these natural resources are causing trouble for humanity, for next generations, for the environment, for the ecology. So here we can see that Jainism has gone deep into the concept of soul, saying that earth, water, air, plants, and fire, all these natural resources are also having life, and we should not damage natural resources without purpose, genuine purpose. And how we can minimize the use of these natural resources, because they are also having a lot of lives in them. And not only this, there are many other lives which are dependent on these natural lives. So if we are exploiting unnecessarily earth, water, fire, air, etc., then we are not just violating the life of these natural resources, but we are violating many other those living beings who are dependent on them, including the human beings also. Okay, see, is it, if there is no water, humans cannot survive. If there is no air, fresh air, humans cannot survive. In this pandemic period, we have seen that we were looking for oxygen. We had money, we have many other resources, but we cannot buy. We could not buy even the oxygen when there was so many people who were victim of pandemic. During that time, it was very difficult to get oxygen for everybody. So oxygen is very much needed to survive. Without oxygen, no living being can survive. So these natural resources are necessities of survival for all living beings. But at the same time, we have to understand that we are using these natural resources for our need, but if we are using them unnecessarily or beyond the limit, then they may be harmful for us. And those issues we are facing today. So in earth bodies, there are different types of living beings. We think that coals, diamonds, stones, metals, they are non-living and we are using them. But according to Jainism, when they are in the mines and connected with their life supportive systems, until they are manufactured, they are live. So we should be very much careful when we are stepping on some raw materials which are coming out of the earth. Water body living beings, there are several types of water in the nature. So if we are using those waters, all the waters, or polluting them unnecessarily, then we are killing so much life of water itself. And what about other living beings who are living into water? We read in many articles that because of the pollutions or factory wastage which are being thrown into sea, the life of fishes and other sea living beings is in danger, and they are getting they are losing their life because of this waste or pollution which is being thrown into rivers and oceans. Fire-bodied living beings, they are also recognized in various forms. So flames, lighting, meteors, and salamanders, these all are the different forms of fire. Fire is also having life. So for cooking food and for other purpose, it may be necessary, but if we are using unnecessarily, then we are killing so much life of fire. Air-bodied living beings, so the air is not visible to our senses, but we know that air is blowing or flowing. So air is also a kind of life, having some kind of life. And these air-bodied living beings are very tiny, but they are there. And this is the main reason that Jain monks and nuns, whenever they start speaking, they keep some piece of cloth to save the life of air. Because the air which is coming out of our mouth when we are speaking or laughing, then it comes with force and it clashes with the air outside, which is living, and sometimes it is killing them. So that's why to follow the rule of non-violence, Jain monks and nuns use this piece of cloth before they speak or before they laugh. So the gross vegetation, now we are coming to the last immobile living beings who are recognized as vegetables, though there are both types of vegetables, micro and macro. So in all the 5 types of natural resources, they are having both the forms, micro and macro. So micro is out of reach, our reach, we are not harming them, but the gross one or the macro ones are coming in our use in our daily day-to-day life. So the gross vegetable souls, who are recognized in technical terms as Badar Vanaspati Jeev. So vegetation and plants, these are of 2 types. Again, one is called Pratyek Sharir. It means there are certain vegetables which are having one soul in one body. Though there may be some other souls also in the same body which are dependent on that particular body. But there is another category of vegetations, and that is known as Sadharan Sharir. It means there is one body which is being shared by infinite number of souls. So all the root vegetables come under this particular category, and that's why Jains try to avoid eating root vegetables, because in root vegetables there are infinite number of souls in a body. So instead of killing so much number of souls, why we can be restricted to the first category, which is Pratyek Shariri, in which there is limited number of souls, but in Sadhana Shariri, we find infinite number of souls. So we can avoid that much killing or violence to vegetables, even in the name of our diet, which is very much necessary for us to survival. So all the carrots, garlics, onions, potato, and other roots and tubers, they come under this category, as I have said. And consumption of these involve more violence. So that's why Jain people try to control their diets in the sense that they try to avoid these root vegetables so that they should not be involved in so much violence of vegetations. Subtle vegetation source Sukshma Vanaspati Jeev called Nigojeev are not known by senses because of their fine size. They are found all over the universe. So we know that the subtle vegetations, they are recognized as Nigodjivas. So they are very subtle and infinite in number in a body. And they are everywhere in the universe. Now we would see that there is another category of worldly living beings, which is known as mobile souls or Trasajiva, and they are also classified according to the number of senses they are having. So there are certain human living beings who are having two senses, and that's why they are known as two-sensed living beings. So they possess sense of touch and taste. For example, worms, oysters, leeches, and conches, etc. So these type of living beings are having only two senses. They can touch the things or they can taste or eat something. Three-sensed living beings, they possess sense of touch, taste, and smell. For example, bugs, leaves, ants, moth, etc. So they are having three senses, so they can smell. And you can see that if we are putting something, some eatable items anywhere, the ants come in few minutes. And we couldn't expect, we couldn't imagine that how they have got the information that something is put here and how they could come here. So because they are having very strong sense of smell, so whenever something is put somewhere, if they are nearby or in the environment, they can smell easily and come to that place. Four-sensed living beings, they are possessing sense of touch, taste, smell, and vision. And for example, bees, flies, mosquitoes, etc. So they are four-sensed living beings. Sometimes we find that even the Jain people, those who are not aware of these lives, if the mosquitoes come to their body, they raise their hand in the way that these mosquitoes are killed or violated. So we have to be very much conscious about all these things. First of all, we have to be very much aware of the cleanliness of our houses and things so that mosquitoes should not be there. And if they are there, then we have to be very much conscious about them, that they are also having some kind of life. If they are killed unnecessarily, then that is a kind of violence to them. So we should be very much careful to getting rid of such kind of mosquitoes, and we should look for some non-violent way to separate them from our body or from our houses. Five-sensed living beings, they possess sense of touch, taste, smell, vision, and hearing, and these are of three kinds again. Aquatic animals like fish, crocodile, whale, etc. Terrestrial animals like cows, elephants, tigers, snake, etc. and aerial animals like birds, bats, etc. So you can see that these are all five-sensed living beings, and we should not understand that these are lesser than us in so far as the senses are concerned. They are also having five senses, and we are also having five senses. And that's why they can easily understand the language of humans or follow their instructions, or they can be domestic, and they can be pet animals for human beings. And we are using these five sensed living beings for many different purposes. So you can see that these all are also having five senses, and common five sensed beings of all three kinds have mind. So we have to understand that all the five sensed animal beings, they are coming out of the womb of their mother or parents. So they are known as the living beings who are having mind. Yes, their mind cannot be so developed as the human beings are having. So, but little bit they can understand the language, or if they are given some training, they can take those trainings, they can do action according to the instructions of the owners. So it is because of their mind. Now we can see that human beings are also five-sensed human living beings. The deities are also five-sensed living beings, and the hellish beings are also having five senses, and that's why they are having mind. But their mind is more developed than the minds of other sensed, other five-sensed animal beings. Five-sensed being with mind have a brain. So it means that the animals are also having a little bit pain, and as the human beings are having. And now we would see that there is one concept of prana. So prana is essential for life. So what is prana? Prana is a kind of vital energy. And this vital energy is essential to work through our body. So whenever we are doing any action, physical action, or any kind of sensory perceptions or activities, then this energy is working from within to function the senses in the way they want to function, or our body or mind. So prana is very essential for our all physical actions, mental, physical, and verbal actions. And this is a subtle form of energy, though it is not easily visible, but we know that we have some temperature in the body. So 98 Fahrenheit, this temperature is very normal and very essential for our body to survive. If we have any lesser number of this degree, then we go to doctor for checking our body, that where is the problem, why I have the normal temperature. Or if it is above the temperature, then we start feeling fever. So this temperature is being maintained by this particular vital energy. And according to Jainism, there are 10 types of energies which are working from within, and which are working behind all our mental, physical, and verbal activities. So life cannot be supported without prana. So without this vital energy, life cannot survive. All living beings, that's why, are having 10 types of pranas. Maybe in some other living beings, some lesser number, but at least the human beings and the five sensed animal beings, they all are having 10 types of pranas. So this prana, so when it is said that death happens, it means the soul is not dying in true sense, but it is the vital energy which was a kind of connecting tissue or connecting a link between the soul and body. When it ceases to exist, then soul separates from body, and that is the death. And when it is said that we have to be non-violent, then it is said that we should not harm even this vital energy of any living being. If we harm these kind of energies, that is also a kind of violence. So non-violence is taken in a very broader sense, especially in the sense that non-violence is a kind of non-harming, non-injuring, non-torturing, non-killing any living beings. And until and unless we have the understanding of living beings, what is living being, what is soul, what is life, and in which form this life is found, we cannot understand the graveness of non-violence, or we cannot follow it into sense. Yes, to little bit, to little extent, we can easily know that what is violence, and we think that, okay, we should not harm any human being or any fellow being, and that is non-violence for us. But that is also a very limited meaning of non-violence or limited application of non-violence. Non-violence is very inclusive. It takes all different forms of life into consideration. And until and unless we understand all these different forms, we cannot be non-violent in true sense or to the extent which is supposed to be. So now we would see that non-violence, why it is being so much emphasized in Jain tradition, or why it is into all the practice of Jainism. Jain people. So it is said that humans are looking for their final liberation, and liberation is possible when he gets away from the karmic bondage, from all types of sufferings, or from all types of attachment and aversion, and ultimately from getting away from the beginningless cycle of birth and death. But why these karmic baggages with the soul? And what is the main cause? So there are several other many causes, but in this particular context of non-violence, we have to understand that karmic baggage is caused especially by our own activities. So we ourselves are responsible for our destiny, for our own misdeeds or right deeds. And especially the suffering, so far as the suffering is concerned, it is said that suffering is a kind of predicament, a human predicament. It is not just a human predicament, it is associated with all different forms of life which are worldly. So this suffering is especially caused by violence. I have provided the full chapter of the first canon, which is known as Acharan Sutra, and it might be you have noted it. This chapter is posted, uploaded on the module of the 4th week of this week. Especially if you would go through that chapter, then you would find that Mahavir is talking about the non-armament, so that violence can be controlled. And he's talking about non-violence towards all these natural resources. And he's saying again and again in that particular text that whatever suffering is found in the world or in life of anyone, it is mainly caused by violence. So if violence can be avoided, humans can come out of suffering. And if it is not, then he is bound to suffer in this world in different ways. So without being non-violent, no one can live with peace with other fellow beings, family members, or any other person, or nor can progress in his life. If there is violence, we can see that what kind of destruction is caused by in wars, in battles, in fightings, and domestic violences. Nobody can go ahead, or nobody can progress in that situation. So until and unless we are able to control our violent ambitions or violent activities, violent urges, impulses, it is very difficult to progress in the life, nor can get rid of suffering. Suffering is mainly caused by violence. So if we want to get rid of suffering of our life or ups and downs and problems and issues, we have to be very much compassionate to all living beings. We have to be very much respectful to all living beings. Nor can realize authentic self. Ultimately, the human goal of life, the ultimate goal of human life is to realize his own authentic self, which is divine, full of wisdom, full of intuition, full of bliss, and having eternal peace. So that authentic self can only be realized when we are able to realize, or we are able to recognize the self of other people like us. So that kind of sense when it comes, then only we can be non-violent in our behavior, in our thinking, in our attitude, in our day-to-day dealings, and ultimately we can be able to achieve what we are looking for in this human life. So with this, I have just given a very simple overview of the concept of self about in Jain perspective. If somebody has any question regarding the concept of self or any other, they are able to ask me. So now, after discuss we the logical interpretation of nonviolence, I have just finished this discussion on soul or the concept of jiva, which is very important to understand the philosophical base of nonviolence. So if somebody has any question, they can ask me. Okay, so Sadhvi, Prasanna, yes, you can ask. So now all are, what we say, unmuted. So they can unmute themselves and can ask any question.
According to science, they only believe that one drop of water has many living beings. Okay, but today, though then means they don't say that drop itself is a living being. In Jainism, it is that Apka is living being, right now. But science doesn't tell like this. So
Yes,
how we can state that it is a living?
okay. So I say that if things are growing by themselves naturally, then
Hmm.
it must have life. Non-living things cannot grow by themselves. Okay, they never grow actually. Okay, they suppose we have constructed these houses, they are as it is all the times. They may change and they may ruin with the time, but they cannot grow in any way. But if there is some life, then they can grow. So water is growing, okay, in its original places. So water is growing by itself. So without life, nothing can grow. All the natural plants are growing. Earth is growing. It is there are certain scientific
Earth
experiments
is also
are done with
growing.
Earth. So similarly, yes, till today, science couldn't explore that water is having life, but there are certain experiments which have been done in, especially in Japan, or some Japanese scientists, and they have put water into two separate bowls, and one water was praised that you are very good for our health, you are good for very necessary for our survival, so you really you are very precious for us, like that. Some praising words were told to the water of one bowl, and after the aura was taken of that particular water of that bowl, then they found that the aura was so bright and having very good image of a flower. And the second water, which was in the second bowl, it was told that, oh, you are very bad thing for us. Whenever you comes in flood, you destroy cities, many lives, many natural resources like that. So when it was scolded by that scientist, then after the aura was taken, the picture of aura was taken, then it was so blurry, and it was showing that water was very unhappy by listening to the words of those scientists. So some experiments have been done, and it is said now that water is having some kind of consciousness. Otherwise, how it can react in such a way?
Okay.
And Vandami, let me explain it into the two way.
Yes.
So, however, our Jainism, okay, Jainism believe that our soul cannot be seen by our naked eyes, right? No one can see it. It is that the existence is can be felt, and that's how, even though if the soul is departure from a body, we can say it's a dead body. While the soul, it is inside the body one, we can say that the person is alive. So same way, water has two kinds of those one. One, that the soul, which one has the body itself is a water, okay, and that is how you can fill it up that. And second thing, you know that right now, even though with this the microscopics, the scientist has already been discovered, there are thousands and thousands of the microorganisms are living into the water, and their body is basically is a waterly body. That's why we can say even a droplet of the water has a life. Okay, I think I clear your questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is one logic, and another logic is that if there is some life, then it needs always some oxygen. Okay, so we also know the equation of forming water, scientific equation of forming water. It is H2O, is it? So hydrogen, one drop of hydrogen and two drops of oxygen, H2O, no? So two drops of hydrogen and one drop of oxygen. So oxygen is required for water also. So it means water is living. That's why it is looking for some oxygen, some amount of oxygen in it. So oxygen is required only by the living beings. Any other question?
I have a question.
Yes.
We say that by eating plants and fruits and vegetables, we minimize the violence. How can we understand that by eating just the plants and fruits and vegetables, the violence is less as compared to the non-veg food and all?
Okay. So we have to understand that somebody who is taking non-veg, they are just not taking non-veg. They are also taking vegetables. Until and unless they take vegetables, their non-veg cannot also be digested in proper way. So without natural resources, using the natural resources in diet, even by the non-vegetarian people, their diet is not completed. So we have to understand here that they are not just killing those animal beings, but they are also using natural resources. So they are doing double violence. Double violence. Second, when one animal is grown, it is feed with vegetables. So how much vegetables one animal is taking to grow? So that violence is also being added. So you can calculate that what kind of violences are being done by a non-veg diet than a vegetarian. And the vegetarian people, they are restricting their diet in the way that whatever is necessary they are taking, and they are trying to avoid some root vegetables even. So you can see just that violence in comparison to non-veg diet, in vegetarian diet, it is lesser, very less.
But the basic understanding that even by consuming the vegetables or plants, we are letting the soul getting separated from its body, right? Even for the, that is true for fruits and vegetables also.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that, so the impact of that is same for all sense living beings.
Vandami, let me take this the question. Okay.
Yes.
So, however, is the violence defined, right? There is a way, it's called a class and a mass. Okay. Sometimes we are using that the logic. For an example, I can give you, right? Okay. So, king is also a soul, correct? Or king is also a human, right?
Yeah.
So whenever, and there is an entire army, so entire army individual soldier is also a human. So just to save a king, you know that there are the entire army is fighting for it. So why they want to save it, a king? Because there is a class, right? You need to, sometimes you just need to think that, okay, where there is a comparison, which one you are targeting, which one is the most important one. So whenever you want to save a class on that time, that the mass is relevantly less important. Okay. And so that's why whenever we are comparing here, one is okay, where is the most violence is happening? So most violence is happening in a, however, we learned about the thrust use. Thrust means from the two senses to the five senses one. Okay, because once you go in a deep one, that the paryapti means to getting in a two sense, it's a tremendous difficult. And that is we have already learned in a very first lecture one, when Professor Rajmalji has explained us this, the universe is full of lives, and to just getting entered into a thrust nadi, it's a very very difficult one. So here that is the same comparison comes up there. Whenever you have a choice, what you choose, okay, class or a mass. So on that time we are just choosing a class. Okay, we want to save a class. It means that two senses, three senses, four senses, and five senses beings, not the mass one. What is comes considered in a mass one? That is a one senses, and one senses you will find everywhere, whether it is an earth, whether you breathe, okay, you are taking a air, whether you drink a water, okay, when you use a fire, all these things means any kind of the fire. It is not just the fire, any kind of those, the heat has a life, right? So
Yeah.
that's how you will consider. Okay, and that's how this the comparison is been going on. Whenever we are talking about the non-violence, it means that we want to reduce an imprint of any kind of those the violence activities done by us. And that has always an it is purely science based. Every action has a reactions. If we reduce our impact on a violating kind of those activities, it will be definitely reducing it. It has their own consequences, and it will be felt by all everyone.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah. One thing more we have to understand here, that Jainism doesn't prescribe even the vegetarian diet. Okay. It prescribes restraint, self-restraint, how you can control even your diet. It doesn't prescribe even vegetarian diet because it doesn't believe in any kind of violence. So one sense living beings and five sense living beings, they are equal so far as their soul is concerned. So we have to be non-violent to all living beings. Their soul is not different from our souls. Okay. So Jainism is more into self-restraint than prescribing anything which is having any kind of violence to any kind form of life. Okay. And since we cannot survive without eating anything, and that's why it is the basic necessity to eat some fruit or some vegetables or some grains, or to use these natural resources to extent we need for our survival. But apart from that, we have to be very much non-violent to all those living beings, though we are killing, and that's why we are doing pratikraman, etc., that we are asking for forgiveness from all these once living beings also. So we are not, it is not supposed that they can be killed. Their life is not equal to us. Their life is equal to us, and we may have same kind of impact if we are killing them. But just we have to see that whenever we are using some natural resources, and mostly people don't see that they are live, they don't understand that they are having life. And those living beings who come under the category of 2 to 5 cents, they are looking like living beings. And if we are killing them, they are crying, shouting, uh, shedding tears. So in that condition, if somebody is killing, in that moment, he himself is having so much cruelty to, in spite of knowing that he is living and crying and somebody is killing. So cruelty is also involved in killing, in taking the non-veg diet. And that is most important factor to understand, because Jainism doesn't say that action is only the causing some kind of karmic bondage, but intensity of your emotions which are involved in taking any action is more harmful, and we have to be conscious about that things.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it brings more clarity.
Vandami Samaniji.
And
Uh,
this Asoka tree, Tirthankar sitting on the tree, this is living or non-living? Non-living means how we will call the Chaitanya tree?
Okay, so the trees, and under the trees, especially the Tirthankars are shown sitting under the tree, which is known as Ashok tree, and which is especially created by the gods, deities. And that tree is non-living, that is not having life. Okay. But yes, it is said sometimes that they have got enlightenment under some tree, but they are not harming the tree, they are not touching the tree. We can sit under the shadow of the tree, then there is no violence.
Then Prithvikai, we are saying as Prithvikai.
Yes. So what, Pratika?
Then Prithvikai also Jeev, na? One sense Jeev.
It is true. But when you have to understand that the earthly bodies which are found below the surface is having life actually. The superficial layers of soils or earth is not having life, because we have stepped so many times on that earth, on that surface, and so many vehicles are passing, so, and so much heat is there, which is on which is what we say, coming to that superficial soil. So they are not live soils, okay, on which we are stepping or sitting. The upper layer is not having life. The inner layers are having life. That's why digging is not what we say preferred. Unnecessary digging we should not do, because the life of earth body, living beings which is found below the surface is what we say is a kind of life, and we should not harm to that.
What about Kalpa Vriksha, madam? During the Bhumi time, Kalpa Vriksha is Vanaspati Kai or Prithvikai?
Okay, so they are said to be of Prithvikai, okay, and not Vanaspatikai.
That also one sense living being or non-living?
We have to see, because they are giving fruits, etc. So I have to do some study for about them, that whether they are non-living completely. And sometimes it is said that it is because of the meritorious karmas of those human beings who were in that time, especially, and they are a kind of divine trees, and they are growing because of their auspicious karmas. So just we have to see that I am not aware, or I have not done any study regarding their life, whether they are having such life or not, or they are divine trees.
Vandami.
Yes.
Thank you.
One more question.
Mhm.
All about we are speaking about only Jeev violence, okay? Living being violence. What about non-living being violence? Means what is Ajeev Hinsa?
Non-living.
Sorry?
What you have asked actually?
Non-violent. No. मीन्स अजीब हिंसा क्या होती है? अजीब की
Oh,
हिंसा जो हम देख रहे हैं वो सारा जीव से रिलेटेड ही हो गया ना.
see,
क्लासिफिकेशन भी पूरा जीव का ही देखा हमने.
yes. So non-living has no consciousness. So there is no violence actually to them. But in the Jain scriptures, you would be very much amazed to know that we should respect the non-living items also. So Ajiv Ashatana is also discussed in the Jain scriptures. Okay, we cannot throw things in the way we are thinking. We have to put the non-living elements or entities or objects also with great respect, because they are coming in your use. They are supporting you to survive or to live a comfortable life. So you have to be thankful to them. You should not show any kind of disrespect to non-living objects. Okay. And second thing, we have to understand that these non-living stuff is actually the bodies of some living beings. Okay, whatever you are using, they are coming from some live sources. Okay, so that's why you should not be what we say disrespectful to those bodies also, because they are also bodies of some living beings. Now since you are using or these things are manufactured, and therefore they have become what we say devoid of some life. But after all, they were also associated with some life. And this is one more reason that we have to be very much respectful to those bodies, because those bodies were also the bodies of some living beings.
So according to you, violence can be classified as Jeev or Ajeev?
You can say if but ashatana, the concept of ashatana is given that you should not be
Ashatana is different.
disrespectful.
Ashatana
Okay,
is yeah,
non-violence
and
is
what is
especially confined to the living beings. Okay, non-violence is confined to living beings, but so far as the respect is concerned, you must have the same respect to the non-living objects too.
sorry to elaborate, but today means Zomato, Amazon, Swiggy, everything, whichever sell the online things, okay? उनका हर चीज कोई ना कोई पैकिंग में होता है. जैसे if they want to sell a single piece of banana, they will wrap it in plastic or something, then they will sell it. Okay, whenever the person is using
Okay, I have to mute all people, and you have to unmute yourself. Okay, yes. Now you can repeat because there is noise, and I'm unable to see and listen to you.
जैसे कोई भी फ्रूट हो या वेजिटेबल हो उसका इंडिविजुअल पैकिंग हो रहा है और जब
Yes.
वो फ्रूट या वेजिटेबल यूज हो रहा है ना तो वो जो
Mhm.
पैकेजिंग वेस्टेज है उस वजह से जो एनवायरमेंटल पोल्यूशन हो रहा है या क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है तो मे बी
Mhm.
एक टाइप ऑफ वायलेंस हो सकता है ना अजीब को लेके यानी जो गार्बेज ही वेस्ट है उसको लेके.
Yes. So it is a kind of what we say thing which is being being created by humans, and which is very harmful to nature or environment or ecological order. So it is, after all, human beings. They have to be conscious about the use of these things, that these things are harming so much. So after all, it is human being who is responsible for that kind of violence, who are using such kind of items or stuff.
Okay,
Is
thank you.
it? Yes.
Yeah.
Vandami, let me give her answer in a different way. Okay, so basically, however, Vandami already told, right? There are two ways to look at this, the same situations. Any kind of those, the items you are seeing, that the packaging, yes, it has a life because the life is spread it everywhere. Okay, so that is the one point of view. And whenever we are talking about to doing an ajiv hinsa, so there is as a principally there is not a concept, because the hinsa can only be done to the living things. Okay, non-living things cannot be harmed. Okay, so even though I can put you in a different way, whether if you collecting thousands of boxes doesn't getting changed, or even if you crush that the boxes even that doesn't feel anything. but what is the feeling over there? Because it is not just the boxes, you know, that the boxes also has a many microbes or many lives is attached to it, right? And that is get harmed. All right, and that's why here is ahimsa is a principle of respecting. And what is the respect? However, is a respect is like you are a living being, so you have a right to live. The same thing, it is also a living being, and they also have a right to live, right? And we should not encourage their life to live. Okay, and that is the basic principle. It is means respect a life. I hope you understand, right? And that's why we should use, yeah, and that's how, and as we have a mati, we have a brain, we should use our sense in the wisely. That's why we can create a big impact.
Okay. Thank you.
वंदानी,
Yes.
एक और क्वेश्चन है मिर्जा।
Yes.
समनी जी, ये जो हम पानी को जो उबालते हैं, तो पानी का तो जो एक जीव है, तो
हम्म,
उसको भी तो परिताकिलामना होती है ना, और
बिल्कुल होती है।
और
हम्म,
उसके अंदर भी जो जीव है, जो उसको भी ये होता है। तो
yes.
यदि ये जो उबालने में, तो
हम्म,
बाद में हम उसको बोलते कि अचेत हो गया,
हम्म,
तो वो पानी में जैसे वापिस अभी अचेत हो गया, तो वो वापिस सचेत कैसे होता है? वापिस जैसे हम लोग ऐसे बिलीव करते हैं कि उसको 8 घंटे के बाद वो वापिस उसको रीबॉइल करना चाहिए। तो एक बार आत्मा जो अचेत हो गया, यानी वो डेड हो गया, तो वहाँ आत्मा है ही नहीं। तो जो पानी, तो वो थोड़ा उसके पे थोड़ा प्रकाश डालेंगे कि अचेत, अचीत, सचित, और ये पानी के बारे में। और ये उबालने से जो हम लोग अचेत कर रहे हैं, तो उसमें तो बहुत सारी परिताकिलामना होती है, असंख्या जीव की और पानी के जीव की भी।
correct.
तो हाँ जी, तो
Okay, so it is very good question and very logical also. Yes, since it is said in the scriptures that in the one sensed living beings, there is constant growth of new living beings. There is constant, okay? Every moment, you can say thousands of living lives are coming into the same order. So if you boils, in that moment, you are killing, of course, so many lives which are already existing in that particular water. But when you boiled once, up to 6 hours almost, there is no other life. Otherwise, there is constant growth of lives, okay, in the water. So you are trying to avoid those violence which is not necessary, unnecessary, and that's why whenever you will use water, water is having life. Either you are boiling or not boiling, okay? You are killing that life, okay? But at least after boiling 6 hours, you will not get any other life into that water. Otherwise, there is constant new growths of lives in that water. And after being becoming cool after 6 hours, it looks that it might be that the same body can be used by living beings. Before there may be some temperature, some kind of temperature. In that condition, no other new life can generate in that particular water. So this may be the reason, though I have not read anything about it, but yes, I know that those traditions who are boiling water, they are considering that after 6 hours it becomes again live. It means the temperature on the temperature the water was, and during the 6 hours the temperature gets lessened or reduced or is not there, and that's why the new life can come into that same water. So that may be one reason I can say. Okay, but yes, whenever we are using raw materials directly or boiling or cooking, then we are killing the life, of course, which is there.
Vandami, let me explain him in a very basic way. So let me divide your part or your question part into a two section, right? First one, you said, okay, whenever you are boiling a water, on that time, whatever the life inside it, it feels a pain. Yes, okay. So that is the one section. And second section, okay, once it is a subject, once it's being, it has become a non-life sense way, and then after a certain period of the time, where does the life come back? Correct. So I'll
Yes.
give you this there are two questions has two answers. Okay, let me just tell you very first one. Whenever you are
जी.
boiling a water and it has
Yes.
any kind of the jiva is feeling a pain, then what would be happening? Are we doing a hinsa? I can simply give you an answer with a very logic one. For an example, if you get a gangrene, what would be happened? You know, that means your one part of your body, either a finger, suppose you have a gangrene in your finger one, you are feeling a pain, right? And then you go to the doctor one and doctor says they need to amputate your finger. Okay. Yes, on that time, you are feeling a pain, but once they amputate it, why they want to give you a pain? And even though that amputating means you're cutting down your finger, why? Because they want to save you, correct? So on that time, you always say thank you, doctor, because this initial pain is saved you from suffering a prolonged pain in a pain state. You understand? If you do not treat that your finger one, you
Yes.
been in a prolonged state of a pain. Means you can feel a pain up to very one. So yeah, initial pain is just you can feel an initial pain a little bit or even much intense, but that the duration is a short rather than you want to be in a state of the full pain for your life or up to what one. So that is the same logic applied here. Okay, whenever we are boiling a water, yes, on that time what we want to do, because the life growing in a water is a continuously, and that is what we can say in a one our heartbeat there are 18 times of those the lives is been just many, sometimes they have a different from those the 18 times to the a prolonged time. Sometimes that the creatures or whatever the life being in live into this the water one, they have a different times. So it means that there is in a drop one there is a continuously life coming it out and going out continuously. And some point if you want to stop that the cycle, you want to act at some point. So whenever you boil that the water, you stop that the cycle of life and death inside that the microbes whatever living into a water one to be developed. Okay, you stop that the cycles, and then after, yes, and then after up to a certain period of the time that the cycle is break, and then that the cycle is regenerated. So you are saving a tons of those the uh, life that is supposed to be grown into that the water, living and dead. Okay, and that is the main basic concept.
Yes. So now I think the answer is got. Anybody else has any question?
Vandami Samariji, I have a quick question. One is you mentioned the term manovargana.
Yes.
Can you go over that again, please?
Okay. So manovargana means whenever we are thinking, we are using some subtle matter which is available in the environment. And that's why sometimes people say that whenever we are thinking something negative, then we are getting negative energy, no? Or
Yes.
we are thinking some positive, and then we are getting some positive energies. So it means that the material which is being used from outside during the time of thinking, analyzing, classifying, or whatever mental functions you are doing. So you need some subtle matter to think, and that matter converts into the images whenever you are thinking about anything. Okay, suppose if you are thinking about the Maruti car, that you are going to buy that Maruti car, so the image of Maruti car will be in your mind as soon as you will start thinking. So that matter converts into the images of your thought process, and they are utilized in thinking process. Okay. So until and unless you need you have the support of this subtle matter from the environment, which is known as the matter of Manovargana, means the matter which is used especially in the thinking process or during the thinking process, you cannot think of anything. Okay. So
Yes.
Jainism, every time our brain needs some material from the environment to do thinking process. Okay. So without thinking
Okay.
process, without matter, you cannot think.
Yes. I wanted to say to the other lady who asked the question earlier about Hinsa in consumption. EarthSafe is a vegan organization, and they've done a lot of scientific studies of Hinsa in terms of water usage for growing, for example, vegetables versus meat consumption. And there's a lot of science behind that, proving that a vegetarian diet is a...
Sorry, you can repeat. Here there is some background voice. People should be aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just to go back to the lady who asked the question about consumption, the Hinsa in consumption, EarthSafe, which is a vegetarian, a vegan organization, has done a lot of scientific studies where they have proven that using vegetables uses up a lot more of, uses up a lot less of the earth resources than meat consumption.
Oh, yeah. So
like the
this
water
is
usage and so on.
Yeah, this is also a very good point to understand why vegetarian diet is involving lesser violence in comparison to the non-veg diet.
And I think I also understood now more clearly, which I think most people knew, that after you boil the water, although you're doing Hinsa by killing the life that's there, but once you consume non-boiled water, you're allowing life to grow for an extended period, which can produce a lot more lives, which then you are then killing inside your body afterwards, which is more Hinsa.
So I can put it in a way, however, okay, so I will just say there are 1,000 people and there are the 100 people, right? And which one you going to save, 1,000 people or 100 people? If some disaster will come, then definitely on that time you choose 1,000 people, because on that time you choose a bigger mass rather than a smaller mass, right? So whenever you are boiling a water, it is the same way. You are choosing a smaller mass whenever compared to the bigger mass, means a continuously growing a life in a water. Okay, so that's where I think that's where you can put it up there logically.
Vanda Mishramani ji,
yes,
साइंटिफिक डेटा ऑल्सो दिखाता है कि जैसे हम बॉईल करते हैं वाटर, तो द थर्ड पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन वाज कि उसका काल होता है, राइट? आफ्टर सर्टेन टाइम वी आर रीबॉइलिंग इट, एंड हाउ डज द लाइफ गेट्स इंट्रोड्यूस्ड इनटू अ नॉन लिविंग सिचुएशन। तो उसका आंसर ये है कि जब हम बॉयल वाटर करते हैं तो देयर आर मल्टीपल डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ लाइफ फॉर्म्स। कुछ होते हैं लाइफ फॉर्म्स के जिनके एग्स होते हैं, कुछ होते हैं लाइफ फॉर्म्स इनके बॉडी के अराउंड शेल होता है, तो वो पुट्स इट दैट लाइफ फॉर्म इनटू अ डॉर्मेंट फॉर्म। तो वो किल नहीं होता है, इट इज इन अ डॉर्मेंट फॉर्म वेयर इट डजंट हैव एबिलिटी टू ग्रो। तो जब ये टाइम खत्म हो जाता है, देन द टेम्परेचर इज डाउन एंड ओवर सर्टेन टाइम that shell is then again broken and the bacteria and the viruses can start growing again. So this is the reason जैसे हम सर्जरी करते हैं तो हम लोग ऑटोक्लेव करते हैं, ये स्टरिलाइजेशन का प्रोसेस होता है। तो सिर्फ उसमें टेम्परेचर नहीं बढ़ाया जाता, हम लोग उसमें प्रेशर भी बढ़ाते हैं, बिकॉज इट गिव्स मोर इनएक्टिव फॉर्म्स ऑफ द लाइफ, so that after the surgery the infection doesn't happen in the body. So you know, as always Jainism is far ahead. They introduce this because हम लोग घर पे पानी उबालते हैं या आम आदमी पानी उबालता है तो वो टेम्परेचर, उसका प्रेशर नहीं बढ़ा सकता, तो इसीलिए हमने काल रखा है कि इतने टाइम के बाद अगेन द बैक्टीरिया जो इनएक्टिव फॉर्म्स में गए, दे विल स्टार्ट ग्रोइंग अगेन।
wow. So it is very scientific and very logical answer which we are getting from Dr. Riddhesh. Riddhesh is an oncologist. He's a very well-known doctor of what we say cancer, I think. So
Vanda, I mean, Samni, sorry to interrupt, but I think this is more logical as far as scripture is concerned, because ऐसा है कि कोई भी सूक्ष्म जीव है, इसको
yes,
हम ना मार सकते हैं, ना काट सकते हैं, ना कुछ कर सकते हैं.
yes,
तो जो ये जो डॉक्टर साहब ने बताया, दैट इज आई थिंक मोर लॉजिकल, कि
yeah.
ये जो लाइफ जो है वो डोरमेंट हो जाती है,
Mhm.
और वो आफ्टर स्पेसिफिक टाइम वो
Yes.
वापस they come back to life, like so many earthworms and so many things which we see, that which is simple by one drop of rainfall, one
Mhm.
rainfall,
Mhm.
everything comes out, even
Mhm.
earthworms and other things. So they
Mhm.
were there, but they were dormant, and all many months they were dormant, but just because they got a water, they got a life, because we cannot kill anything. I mean, especially सूक्ष्म जीव तो कोई
Mhm.
हम कितना भी चाहे मार नहीं सकते हैं, ऐसा स्क्रिप्चर कहता है. तो ये जो डॉर्मेंट का जो फिलोसॉफी है, जो आई थिंक दैट इज अ वेरी, थैंक यू वेरी मच.
No, thank you. Would you introduce yourself, because I couldn't come to know you about you, so it will be better for us to have an introduction of you.
नहीं, मेरा नाम रिदेश है.
Yeah.
मैं कैंसर और हिमेटोलॉजिस्ट ऑन्कोलॉजिस्ट हूँ. मैं यहाँ ड्यूक यूनिवर्सिटी में काम करता हूँ, और जैनिज्म में मुझे काफ़ी इंटरेस्ट है, तो मुझे काफ़ी कुछ सीखने मिलता है. सो थैंक यू फॉर हैविंग मी.
And I would request Chandrakant Bhai also to introduce yourself, please.
My name is Chandrakant. I am from Bombay. Chandrakant Lathia. I am from Bombay, and I'm just retired, and I'm basically engineer by profession,
Okay.
and now Jainism is my science, and Jainism is very interesting subject for me, and so I've I've studied lot of things on ancient arts, science and crafts. So in that, if you study Jainism, then I mean, everything has its answer for
Mhm.
the technology what we see, and what technology has been told कि ये ऐसे लोग जाते थे, ये करते थे communications and all that. So that there was a different means, and that was very easy and fast. A simple example है, जैसे मैथमेटिक्स में हम कैलकुलस में हम इंटीग्रेशन करते हैं, तो बहुत सारा लंबा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड मेथड है, बट
Mhm.
जैन मैथमेटिक्स में इट इज ओनली वन स्टेप मेथड by which you can do any highly complex equations का इवेल्युएशन है, डेरिवेटिव्स है, इंटीग्रेशंस है, मल्टीपल इंटीग्रेशंस है within simple one step formula. So it is very amazing and very interesting. So I am working on that. So thank you, and thank you for a very lovely session, ma'am.
Okay, so
Samiji, Darshan and
thank you for joining such what we say wonderful people who are having very good background of Jainism and study of science, and they are able to connect to these things, the two things also. So I would request Chandrakant Bhai also and Dr. Riddesh to write something in the light of science. So whatever science background you are having, you can connect with the Jain principles and practices, so that it can be more scientific and more logical to other people.
Can I ask
Sure,
one question,
sure,
please,
ma'am.
Vandami?
Yes, you can.
Okay. If you think about a tree, for example, a mango tree,
Yes.
the tree is a living being,
Mhm.
and there's many mangoes growing. So the
Mhm.
mangoes are actually, they have the potential to grow. They have a seed.
Mhm.
So that means that they have some kind of it's one sensed, obviously. So many mangoes are actually dependent on that one tree. So
Correct.
what kind of, like, is it similar to, like you were saying, that in one potato or onion or root vegetables, there are so many souls dependent on one body. So these mangoes are dependent on one tree.
Correct. Yes. But just we have to see here that there is one body and one soul, infinite number of souls. But here the body, suppose one mango is one body. Okay, one leaf is one body. Similarly, one tree is also a body of one seed. So in that sense, it is said that these are the different bodies and having one soul in them. But yes, the tree is, all the fruits are dependent on that particular tree. And that's why in the Shvekanik Sutra, at every step, Mahavir says that Purvi Kayam Vihinsanto Hinsayi Tayasye. So he talks about all the natural resources, and he says that when you are violating any life of all these 5 types of resources, you are not just violating that particular life, which is in particular seed or particular fruit or in particular tree, but you are violating so many other lives which are dependent on that particular tree. Okay. So the fruits, the lives of or seeds or lives of all the leaves and the trunk and also the seeds or fruits, they are dependent on that particular one body which is growing from one seed. So in that sense, it is said that these are the dependent ones. They are separate ones. Okay, they are having their own body, separate bodies. While the root vegetables, it is one body and infinite souls. So all the souls are sharing the same body. They are taking same respiration and they are taking same food. If suppose one living being in that particular root vegetable is looking for food, and if it is taking from outside, that food is being shared by all other infinite number of souls. Okay, so because the body is the same, so it is going to all or being shared with all other souls of that particular root vegetable. So in that way, we have to understand that there is one body, one soul. Here, so many bodies and so many souls. One may be original one, and the other ones may be dependent on that.
So when you pluck a mango, that means you're doing hinsa, and then when you grow that, for example, in your garden, when you grow the seed, then it develops into a tree. So then the soul is reborn, kind of.
Yes. Yes. So that's why in Jainism, we don't say to grow any plant or to sow any seed or to create any kind of such a plant, lawns, etc. Because when you are growing one seed, hundreds of living beings are coming into existence and they are being killed by someone or by yourself. So you are causing some kind of violence by growing some seed or sowing some seed. But yes, it is necessary for survival, and that's why people have to do that one on that thing. But how much is needed, we have to fix that. We have to draw the line of our necessities.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes. So I think there is good discussion. And should I?
One last question. This is regarding fire and salamander. Can you explain when you mentioned fire?
Yes, fire.
And you said salamander?
Okay, yeah. So salamander, actually the term I have taken, but the exact Hindi meaning I don't know. But I have to see that these are the different forms of fire, and fire is also having life. And that's what is the sign of being live of the fire. So it is said that fire is taking oxygen from the environment. If it is taking oxygen, then it is live. If we put some cover on the suppose on some candle, and if it doesn't get any kind of air from outside, it will extinct. Okay, so fire is is taking oxygen all the times. These tubes and bulbs which we are using, they are electronic energies. Okay, they are not fire because they don't need oxygen.
Yes.
Okay, they are closed. So they cannot be considered as fire. Still in our some traditions, this light is not used, thinking that we are violating the life of fire, but it is not actually fire. It is electronic energy which gives light, okay, and also heat.
Because there is a fire salamander, which is like a lizard, and that actually uses some sort of an alkaloid. So I was just wondering what salamander is related, how is it related to fire? Okay, you can find the Hindi
I
one.
have to actually see the exact meaning and in what sense it is
Okay,
used.
okay, thanks.
I have
Thank
taken
you.
from somewhere, this is the example,
Mhm.
but I couldn't see the exact meaning of that particular word.
Yeah, okay.
I will say it.
One,
Thank you.
Vandami,
Yes.
let me just give her more explanations. So right now, however, Vandami explained, right? Because we needed some kind of those the example to understand. And the thing is that whenever it is been example is been given, we supposed to understand the logic behind it, or that the principle is being stated through the example. It is not always been considered as okay because of this one that the thing is okay. I totally agreed. And second thing, because however Vandam is explaining, there is oxygen, but life is not depending on any other things. Okay. So however, because we understand there is a fire is all there, and because of the oxygen they have, but no, fire has that whatever the living things is basically the Jainism believes that fire is a body of a living being. Okay, it didn't, and then any kind of those, there are the supportive one is the supportive things, right? However, you are a living being, and what are the supportive things for you? It's vegetables or fruits, or we can say a food and air and other things. So that is been a supportive thing. So same thing, fire is a living being, and it is being considered as a living being in a Jainism. So I hope your doubt is being clear, but we can understand those kind of the things is better with this the oxygen. It means that if I am not giving you any kind of those the support things, how prolong you can leave it. That's how we are just considering it, to understand the logic behind it. But otherwise, it is not always been depend on it.
Yeah, see, one thing we have to understand. We are talking about the worldly living beings who cannot survive without oxygen, who cannot. Even the incomplete living beings, those who are not able to complete their own physical systems, which are necessary for survival in that particular form of life, they are also bound to complete a respiratory system, though half, not full. And that's why they come under the incomplete ones. But it is very essential that to be live even in that incomplete form, the living beings are bound to complete or to make their create their respiratory system inside the body. So oxygen is a necessity for a survival, especially for the living beings who are in the worldly life. Not for those who are the pure souls, okay? They are liberated souls. So they don't require any kind of oxygen. So in that sense, we can say, yes, the soul is not dependent on oxygen, but for survival in that sense. But yes, the worldly living beings, they require oxygen. Without oxygen, they cannot be said as a living entity in some sense.
वंदामी नमस्ते समड़ी जी।
Yes.
आई थिंक आज बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग डिस्कशन हुआ और उसके बारे में मुझे मेरा एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करना है। क्योंकि once I came to New Jersey, right, I started like sneezing and like that, and I show all the doctor allergy testing, everything I did it, but somehow it was not working and they could not figure it out what's going on. And after all this session and like coming, it just clicked my mind, let me start boiling the water and drink it. So from like over 1 year, now I'm drinking that boiling water. I just boil every day and drink it. And I feel so good, no allergies or like that. So I think this boiled water, right, the way discussion going on, like I feel like I'm the like learn now why it was giving me that type of sneezing or like that when I was drinking without boiled water. And now I feel so different. So I think that's the reason. I think a lot of health related reason and like that with non-violence. Really, Jainism, it's going very, very deep, and they are giving us really good principle. If we follow, it makes us good, and it's good for everybody else too.
It is true, and that's why it is said nowadays the scientists are thinking about Jainism in the sense of the laws of nature. Okay, laws of nature. So, and it is necessary to understand the laws of nature if we have to live a happy life and healthy life.
Yeah. Thank you.
So,
Very
thank you
interesting
for
session.
okay, so today I couldn't cover the second part of my lecture, which is the logic and non-violence. Might be I will get chance again to speak, and you can see the same article is given in the module of the 4th week, and the article is very, very what we say scholarly and very inclusive and giving very good insight into the logical interpretations of nonviolence. So you can read out from the module. And with this, I would like to stop here my discussions. Thank you for joining, coming. And please, please
Thank
take
you.
please take quiz on time. Those people who are taking late, 15 minutes or 2 hours or 5 years, might be this system will not accept because this is an auto system. Okay, so it would be closed after due date or due time. So please take quizzes before the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Bandami Shamni ji.
Thank you, Samriti. Okay. It is good discussion.
Yes, Samariji lectures.
All are scholars who are participating in the
Thanks
class.
to you, Samariji. Sometimes the less formal talk can actually be more, as you can see from the discussion.
Yes, because those critical or debatable issues, they come in question answer. And we also become very much clear about those aspects. And before we couldn't think of those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Vandami Samiji.